Hello, everybody. You are at the right screen, your screen, and internationally well set up, such as we have today Lars Helgeson from GreenRope. And we are excited because we are big fans, committed me, of smart, easy to handle solutions. Now, with that teaser, does CRM need to be simple? We have a no-brainer in starting, such as we could have at least an hour on just on these little title. So we have some more brought up to you to digest, and we are happy if you share your thoughts on the chat in one of your favorite channels, either one of the YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, wherever you would like to go forward. It is our pleasure if you join the discussion. To our guests of today, Lars, welcome. And please introduce yourself to the audience a bit so that we can have a little starting up before we go into the flow.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Lars Helgeson. I am the founder of a company called GreenRope. And we've been in business in current form for about 12 years. Before that, we worked in email marketing for another 11 years or so before that. So we've been in the game of SaaS and technology and helping businesses of all different sizes for quite a while. And really, our main motivation really comes down to trying to make people's lives easier and simpler. And a lot of times CRMs don't do that. And it's not a trivial problem because businesses can be complicated. But yeah, so that's our main goal. And, a big part of that too is helping people, working with nonprofits, working with government organizations, small businesses, enterprises. We've worked and we currently do work with all different kinds of organizations. And so those challenges are all very different, but at the end of the day, they're all humans that run them, whether it's trying to find ways to feed people, help them with healthcare, or sell widgets or educate people or whatever. Those are all people that have similar kinds of challenges. And so we really try to be as responsive and helpful and answer a lot of the questions I'm sure that we're going to talk about for the next hour or so.
That's cool. When did you start your own business, motivated by keep things simple, smart, and design it in a clever way?
Yeah, it was. So a lot of it came from coming out of the mill. I was in the Air Force for about 4 years. Mm-hmm. And so when you work in an organization that's that big, you are surrounded by bureaucracy. And I worked in the space program. I worked in counterintelligence. So I worked in some respects, I worked in very small organizations. In other ones, I worked with very large bureaucracies and trying to navigate through reams of paper and everything. And so trying to navigate through all of that really made it clear to me as someone who wanted to make things happen, how hard it can be if you don't have the right systems in place. And so a big part of why we built GreenRope to do what it does is around helping organizations avoid those kinds of those processes that just mire down the people that want to get things done.
Where did the name come, by the way?
What's that?
Where did the name come from, by the way?
Oh, GreenRope. Well, you see him wearing the shirt.
Proud chest.
So green is for revenue and sustainability, and rope is because many strands make a rope strong. So the more things you connect your business to, the stronger your rope, and so the stronger your business. And so that was our thinking behind why we created GreenRope the way that we did, where we had sales, marketing, customer service, and typical kind of account management functions all built in the same platform to minimize the amount of effort it takes to connect all those things together. Because as anyone who's worked in business or technology has experienced with, the more times you have things, the more interfaces you have to manage, the more developers you have moving information around back and forth, the harder it is. And so we want to remove that and make it as simple as possible for people.
What role did you have in the Air Force? You were not flying personnel, if I catch it right.
Correct. I was working in the space program, so we did experimental. We worked on experimental satellites, so which was pretty interesting. We would test them before test the technology before they went out on the expensive operational satellites. So it was very interesting work. I got to meet Apollo scientists. I worked at NASA and people in the UK. It was an international program. It was fascinating, amazing work.
Other companies are doing live tests.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, till they explode.
Fireworks.
Yeah. If you can afford fireworks that size, be with it. That's not my attitude. So I prefer to pre-test before I explode. And explosions are just the thing of, if people get really furious about the usability of what they are utilizing, it's like a firework, and you do not hear the explosion, but you see. There is one of these viral comedy-like things where the user is hitting with his keyboard his PC and is throwing it through the complete, let's say, bureau environment. Yeah, he's really mad. Now, having this in mind, which was from the starting point, when did you found GreenRope, and what was your first starting point to create a solution which makes life easier? Which was the first bit?
The first bit was the first company that I started, a company called Cooler Email. And so Cooler Email was an email marketing platform. And this was back in 2000. And we were one of the first. We never took on, I had a business partner at the time. We never took on external funding. Everything was all privately funded. So our growth was not as fast as, say, a Constant Contact or a MailChimp, because we didn't get the money behind us to do that. But the concepts were very similar. And so we grew. And then I had some issues with my business partner and issues with CTO. It's probably a discussion for another time, where, you know, dealing with some mental illness and dealing with some issues with coding. So anyway, in 2011, actually it was in 2008 when I realized I really needed to start over. And I had from the experience of the first 8 years of doing email marketing, I had learned that one of the big challenges really was about how, as a business, how do you learn from what happens with email marketing, because that's only one sliver of what's actually happening in the relationship. And I realized the real core is the CRM. It really, if you think about your business as a customer centric organization, and the relationship is really what drives revenue and growth and what you're actually doing. I mean, as a business, you're providing a service. If you don't provide a service, you're not really in business doing anything. So, so what I wanted to do was create a more relationship centric approach to all the information that you could gather from a CRM, from your marketing. And back in the day, CRM was really a sales tool. It was really a place for salespeople to take notes. And obviously it's evolved since then into be a more expansive, inclusive, coherent way to bring all these different channels together, all this information together, because the relationship isn't just driven by a salesperson. Obviously, you've got marketing messages, you've got social media, you've got customer service, you've all these different interaction points with your customers. And if you don't have a central place to look all that information up, then you don't really understand the relationship, because the relationship is not driven by any one of those people or departments.
I just was curious because other organizations and companies which are quite famous and in the area where Thomas is living, and you're not too far away as well, started from the personal information manager as a starting point, where they said people go to their calendars, people go to their organization, and then need to keep track on what they discussed with their potentials and their existing customers. So that is an interesting differentiator. And from your understanding of what is CRM, could you elaborate more? Is it, the starting point was a better sales notepad, to be provocative. Nowadays, it could be the center of the future.
It is. And I think any business who does not treat their CRM as the core of their operations, the core of how they manage all of those things, the sales, the marketing, and the customer service, any business that doesn't do that is going to be overtaken by a business who does. We live in a competitive capitalistic environment, and efficiency and providing it's a combination of being efficient at being able to manage your customers and providing a good product. So we can't necessarily, a CRM can't do your thing for you, but it's that underlying mesh network that holds all those pieces together, so that you can manage your fulfillment, you can manage your branding, you can manage your salespeople, manage the way that if someone has an issue or a problem, how do you deal with that? And understanding the whole buyer's journey, from initially finding out who you are as a business, all the way through purchase and then after, to turn them into advocates. And you need one system to manage all of that, one database of record to manage all of that. Cool. And if you don't have that,
which is quite an interesting concept that not only every other, but every ERP vendor would subscribe to. And they also would say, well, the core of operations, that's us. CRM is just something that tags onto it, in quotes. So not that I'm an ERP proponent, but I can imagine them saying something like that. So where's the dichotomy? How to resolve this dichotomy?
Yeah, I think... all the pieces have to play together, right? Because the ERP, the financial aspect of what a business does is obviously it needs to be integrated at some level with the CRM. You have to have an understanding of where your business comes from, so, and that's part of that is campaign management and campaign tracking from your marketing team. So you understand these number of leads are coming from these various different sources, but it's more than just marketing, because sales plays a role. At some point, marketing qualified leads become sales qualified leads. And at some point, then you've got Salesforce automation, you've got sales enablement, salespeople actually engaging with people that are in the sales process. It may be a high touch thing if you're selling really expensive, heavy machinery. It may be a low touch if you're selling automated, like widgets or downloadable content or whatever. In all cases, you have to manage and understand what's happening, because you're going to be spending money in marketing to bring leads in, whether that's from social media, hiring influencers, pay-per-click ads, going to trade shows, whatever. You have to understand where all those are coming from, and you have to manage for each of those channels. What kind of quality are you getting from them? It's not just because social media brings you 10 times the number of contacts as, say, trade shows, doesn't make social media better, because then it gets, at some point, those leads are going to get transitioned over into a sales funnel. And in somewhere in that sales funnel, whether you've got a human that's involved or some amount of automated interaction, there's going to be drop-offs. And so if you have 10 times as many leads coming from social media, but they're only 1% as effective, you're losing. You've got to look at these budgets and measure the ROI for each of those things. And so without a CRM that tracks all of that, as a business leader and a manager, you're just guessing at what you think works, because salespeople will think of things empirically. They'll have a great conversation with someone that may have come from a particular channel, and they'll say, I love this channel because yesterday I talked to this great lead that came from this channel. But that's very emotion driven and not data driven. And so what we want to do with CRM is look at each of these channels, not from, the emotional part, of course, is important in talking to people, but the real driver is because if you have one of those and then you say, well, how many other of those came from that particular channel? And the salesperson can't really think of any. And then you look back and you say, well, this is actually the first one, or maybe there's only been 2 out of a huge number that were actually that good. That's where the emotion can override the data. And that's one of the things, like, I think of it, I'm a pilot, and I think of it when you're flying under instruments, you are in the clouds and you cannot trust your internal feelings when you're flying in the clouds, because your brain will trick you. It will make you think that, and you may be flying straight and level, and your brain will be telling you, I feel like I'm turning. And there's no reason for it, but you have to rely on your instruments. And I think of CRM in many ways the same way, because you have to rely on your data to tell you that these are the channels. This is how much we're bringing information in. What's actually happening to these leads? How are we measuring the ROI? And it's really a reliance on that to drive your decisions, as opposed to, I feel this is the best way to go. And that's a hard thing, because so many people are driven by emotions. And so many people will say, well, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why this is happening. But that's not for us as business owners to take ownership of the way other people interact with us. We have to use the data to understand that.
So
how to make my salespeople use the data instead of their guts.
Right. Right.
And trust the cockpit.
Yes. Yeah. And I think
before it's too late to stay to the example.
I think a lot of that comes down to seeing your CRM as a two-way relationship, because the CRM obviously is a relationship manager. But if the leadership in a company uses CRM like a hammer and just says, I, as the sales manager, am ordering you as a salesperson to put this data into the CRM so that in case I ever feel like firing you, I have all the information about your relationships and I don't have to worry about it. You become disposable. If I'm a salesperson in that company, I don't really want to use my CRM, because I'm giving away my power, and I'm just putting information in. And what is my manager going to do with that? So if you create a one-way relationship with a CRM, you're going to have resentment. You're going to have people that say, I spend all my day just typing stuff into the CRM that nobody ever looks at, nobody cares. They're not getting any
acceptance challenge.
Right. And the way to get around that is to create a two-way relationship, and to make the information go back. And so
there must be a direct call from your GreenRope account, such as a challenge might arise.
Right. Well, yeah. So the big thing is to provide information and automation tools for a salesperson to feel like they're getting something back from their CRM in a way that they don't have to do anything. And part of sales enablement it does this because it automates the way you can outreach to your leads and the way you can nurture them. But a big part of it is providing you as a salesperson automated alerts that tell you, what else is this person doing? If I'm a salesperson and I know that I can instantly look at a contact and see what they've done with every email that they've ever been sent, every call they've ever made, whether it's to me or someone else in the company, any customer service issues that they've had, any forms they've filled out, anything, then that makes me a better salesperson. And if I'm a better salesperson, I'm more valuable to the company. They're not going to want to fire me. So it turns it from a negative feedback loop into a positive feedback loop. And it all comes back to the CRM giving that information automatically to the people that are going to use it.
That reminds me to the aspect of a research nearly now 3 years ago, where salespeople been asked for the support they get from the CRM, that it is nearly to none, but that they, exactly what you told, they have 10 times to key in data before they get something useful out. And that instead of utilizing their CRM, they prefer to clean the bathroom. That is a message.
Yeah.
You could use this to convince people that it's more charming to utilize your solution instead of cleaning the bathroom. That is coming back to the question, what is your understanding of simple?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a user's perspective, if I'm an end user of a CRM on a day-to-day basis, it should be simple. I should be able to go into my CRM, look at someone that I want to talk to, and understand everything about that relationship. And then whatever I decide to do, if it's make a phone call, call them up, send them an email, kick off some automated workflow or whatever, it should be an intuitive, easy process to do that. So that as a salesperson, because we want to maximize us as a with our salespeople, or anytime you've got human to human contact, that's what you want to leverage. You don't want your salespeople manually doing lots of typing, checking on things and doing grunt work, doing things that a computer should do for them. You want them to focus on those interpersonal relationships, because that's what you're hiring people to do. When you're talking more on the marketing side, a lot of that's more strategy. And so that's where you've got marketing people able to go in and design those things, design the automations, design the emails that get sent out, design whether you're doing audio or whether you're doing email or texting or social, whatever. All of that should be the focus. The creative elements of that should be the focus of marketing, whether that's strategy or actually creating creative content. The technology should make it easy to make that happen. And so the idea of simplicity, I think, comes down to the day-to-day operation of it. The challenge is that a lot of businesses aren't simple. When you think about the complexities of a lot of businesses, and I know you guys have worked with a lot of different types of business models, some businesses are fairly complicated. And so a part of the simplicity is you have to do the work to get to the point where things are simple. And so I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of simplicity on the far side of complexity. The idea is that if something is simple, say you only sell one product and it's a simple widget, your life can be very simple because you can use simple technology to do that. And maybe you've got one salesperson or whatever, you can use a simple piece of technology to do that. But most businesses don't operate that way. Most businesses have sales teams, marketing teams, customer service teams, where you've got lots of data that's coming in from all different kinds of directions. And you can have complexity with that complexity. And that's where you end up with people inside companies that are holding on to information, then they use this as leverage over each other. In my experience working in the government, people would do this a lot. And I see it too also in corporate business, where someone says, I'm going to make myself super valuable by being the only person who knows how to do this. And when you do that, people create their little empires, and empires can be money or they can be information. And if someone is the only person that knows how to do this thing, they know they can't be fired because they're the only one that knows how to do this very critical function. And so as a business, you can have complexity to manage the complexity of your business. What we want to do is find simplicity on the far side of that, meaning that we understand the complexity of the business, but we can simplify the way that we operate and use tools that simplify the way that we operate so that we can understand all of these processes, automate the things that we can automate, alert people to the things that are important for them to see when they need to see it, and not get overwhelmed with too much information coming at them all the time, and empower people to go in and do their work without getting bogged down by having to do super complex processes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fun part is the tool doesn't do it itself. You need to get the buy-in of exactly this person who will fight toes and nails to avoid exactly being made not the only one who can do this. So basically put themselves into danger of being fired again. So how to deal with that as a systems provider?
So a lot of it is getting people to buy into the concept of teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's ever played on a team, a sports team is a great analogy. I played hockey for a lot of my life. I played soccer for many years, or football. And so if you understand that your role is to make the team better, and you're a team player, and it sounds kind of cliche, where, we're all part of the same team. Go team, go. It's like all the management cliche. But if you can actually do that, and you can use the technology as a tool to break down those barriers, and rather than saying, we're not just going to rely on you because you're the only one that knows how to do this, but you're an integral part of this whole process. You're going to help design the way this works, and you're still going to be in charge of it. You're still going to be operating it. It's just going to be in a more cohesive, team-based environment. And if someone's not willing to work in a team in a company, get them out. I mean, I hate to be that harsh about it, but if you're trying, as a business leader, if you're trying to move your organization to a place of efficiency and people working together as a team, and you've got someone, and I don't care how smart and how great they are, but if they're not willing to work as part of a team, you're just sowing seeds of discontent with your business and with everyone else on the team. And that will flow into your branding. It'll flow into your customers. It'll flow into everything else. And so you've got to be very, very cautious about empowering people who would get in the way of creating this team-based environment.
So creating happiness in the employee area creates also happiness on the customer side, from your perspective.
Yeah, and it's not about, I mean, pizza parties are great, and do the morale boosting things and activities. I mean, those are all great, right? But at the end of the day, people are spending most of their time not at pizza parties. And so if you invest,
they're actually working.
Yeah, right. But if you invest in the systems to make their jobs easier, then you're able to help them do their job better.
Yeah.
So,
in how far are different businesses having different perceptions of what simplicity means? Do you see a difference in industries, across industries, or even individual businesses?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and a lot depends on the size of the organization and the complexity of who their target market is too. There are companies who have a wide range of different products that they sell to a wide range of different people. And so if you're looking at selling to, with very different products, with various different kinds of salespeople doing different kinds of marketing messages, you've got different kinds of automations. That's why before you pick your CRM, you need to define the requirements for that CRM ahead of time. The thing I always cringe when I hear stories about someone saying, well, I used X before and I like it, so we're going to bring that to the new business. Never mind if they have this new business has a totally different set of requirements. And that's the thing that drives me crazy when I see that, because just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's the right tool for the job. I've used a hammer before, but I'm not going to use a hammer to screw in a screw. So what we want to do is start with the requirements with every organization and say, okay, if you're going to do this transformation, if you're going to start relying on a CRM, what does that CRM have to do first? Because like you said, it's simplicity means different things to different people. And so if you're able to talk to a company and sit down with them, and this is where I think consultants, CRM consultants, are so important, because most businesses don't have internal CRM experts, with a broad range of experience. You need to have someone with that broad range of experience to get everyone to sit down together in a room and say, okay, what do we really need? And how do we separate out people from saying, well, I'd really like it to do this pie in the sky, whatever, blah, blah, blah thing. And that's why this is how I'm going to keep my job, by doing this, as opposed to sitting down and saying, okay, let's talk about the customer journey. Let's talk about how we all interact with the customer journey. How do we all do the fulfillment of what our product or service is? Figure out the requirements for the CRM first before you even think about which software you're going to use. Do the requirements first, and then sit down and get a demo and talk to people and look at pricing and total cost of ownership and all those other things that factor in. But it drives me crazy when people say, well, I picked this because they're a big company, or I picked this one because it's I've used it before, not even being fully aware of the consequences of that choice early on.
I embrace your perspective, as we live on this, such as we love to be the tour guides through a successful journey.
Yeah.
On the other end, we find a certain mind blockade or resistancy against smart advice. So it is sometimes a tricky journey, tricky conversation, and getting the scale to at least to a fair ausgeglichen, that it is balanced. Thank you. And then we have to work on getting it on the positive side a bit more strong. Yeah. But I believe that positive reputation, and for instance, a hint in which industries you found the reception more easy to access, or to easier convince them of the benefits and advantage of CRM. As you say, that everybody understands simple in a different way, and so simplicity. So I'm curious on where you had some beneficial experiences on your own.
So, it's funny. I think about that question as you ask it, and I believe, and this is, I'd have to go back and probably look at more data to back this up, but my opinion is that it's more a function of the leadership than it is the industry. I believe that every industry can benefit from CRM. Every business needs CRM, everyone. And I think the adoption of a CRM and getting people to actually participate and use it in a team-based environment, I think that is so much more a function of leadership, and leadership in the sense of being able to communicate the larger vision and being able to take that from the big vision down to the day-to-day operations of how do you interact with a system like this? What are your pain points? Because everyone, no matter what they do, they do some things during their day that aren't ideal. Things that are that may be a waste of time that they feel, things that are inefficient, things where they, I really wish I wouldn't have to do X, or maybe we can automate that, or whatever. So much of that comes down to, how do you as a leader empower your team to be able to come up with these requirements? And then how do you ask the right questions that say, is this really necessary?
Yeah. How
do you take out those unnecessary steps so that, and sometimes those steps are there for security or privacy, or, you've got data security is an important thing. And IT people will step in and say, well, you can't get around this step because XYZ. And so being able to facilitate that conversation. And again, that's where the consultants come in and have such an important role, because usually when you're talking to a company that's trying to make CRM work, no one on the team is a CRM expert. Maybe they had a class in college, but if they've never actually done it, there are so many variables of how things can work together, of who's going to use this, how are you going to move information around, who's going to be able to access it. all these questions that need to be answered before you even start working on designing your CRM for your business.
So yes, it's largely a leadership topic, but that also implies the ability and the necessity to say no. So how do you get in from your side of the business into that discussion then? Because that no might be that some part of the business says, okay, this is important, and another part says it's not.
Yeah,
how,
I mean,
how to get that balance then?
yeah, I
How
mean,
do you help?
that can be some conflict resolution, because you're going to have that in every organization. It doesn't matter how big. There are going to be different perspectives on it, and coming to consensus and decision making is part of what leadership has to be able to facilitate. An open conversation when there's a disagreement, and being able to come down to, well, what is the real requirement? And if you have conflicting requirements, how do you compromise? And I think being able to, if you were to, as a consultant, go into a company and say that we know this is going to happen. We know you're going to have people on your team that are going to present to you conflicting requirements. What's your method of resolution? Does one particular department have more say over something else if there is a conflict? How do you determine if someone absolutely needs it and someone says, well, if you do this, then that's going to impact my ability to do X? All those conflict resolution things. I mean, there are courses and programs about how to do all this, but I think so much of it from a leadership perspective is knowing that it's going to happen and be prepared for it. And be prepared. You're talking to people in a company, people with egos, you've got formal leaders, you've got informal leaders, you've got people that need a lot more support. You've got people that are much more directive in the way they operate. And so you have to be aware of that before you even, and that's almost like before you even start doing your requirements analysis. You've got to take stock of where you are as a business. Who are the players in your business? What are they doing? Who are you selling to? How much do people interact with those people? So understanding who you are first is an important step of the journey of picking the right CRM, which is, it's a very existential thing. If you don't take that time to sit down and think about it first, you're not creating a way to move forward, because you don't know what you're driving to. You don't know if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you want your CRM to be for you.
That begs two follow-ups, actually. So one is, what's the role of the vendor in that whole process? Because I mean, honestly, there's no vendor that just shies away from a project or steps away from a project just because, well, the customer doesn't get their priorities straight. Because we can deliver it all as a system, or as a vendor. We can do this. Trust me. That's part one. And part two of that is, mostly those requirements are, only in quotes, getting deferred. Means the system complexity will increase considerably over time. Still, we want simplicity. How to resolve this dilemma then, as a vendor, or from a vendor perspective?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we try to facilitate those conversations early on. That's why we have when someone creates a GreenRope account, we have mandatory training to resolve these issues first, because we want them to, and it's not just about how to use the CRM. A lot of this immediate training when someone first comes on is about understanding their business process and helping them understand their business process and understand what their requirements really are. If someone comes to us and they say that we want a CRM, it's not enough for us to say, oh yeah, we're a CRM, we can do it, because it's disingenuous, right? We have to be honest about, these are our capabilities. If someone needs something that we can't provide, we want to be able to tell them that now, as opposed to them jumping on board with us and then getting frustrated that we couldn't do something that they thought or hoped that we could do. So we try to be very directive, and that's part of our sales process too, is a very consultative sale, so that we can say, what do you need your CRM to do? If they're not sure, then we need to ask them and get that information out of them. And a big part of that is not just asking what they want tomorrow, but do they want it in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 to look like. And that forces sort of the follow-on questions you were asking, Tom, about making sure that it's not just about what do you need today. The requirements really are about how do we evolve, and then are you doing this incrementally, and does it come with the training? Does it come, because GreenRope has a lot of elements to it. We've got a project manager, we've got a learning management system, you can build an asset library with kind of all different automations, and we've got AI and all these other things that are built in. And we can't expect a company to come on board and in a week have all those things up and running. But if we say that we're going to start first by understanding our customer journey and our requirements and understanding who you are, get to a certain point, and then we're going to look at what we want to do next. What are the next things that you want to build into the CRM and set up automation for? And having that as an incremental process makes that a little bit easier, because people they'll be used to using it, and you get more adoption and more buy-in from the whole organization.
It's a smart way to get them to eat the pizza slice by slice and not in a total.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easier to digest. And in which territories do you actively support and sell these enthusiasts of simplicity?
So we are currently in about, I think it's 41 or 42 countries. And we have a good number of, so we've got reseller partners too that private label our software, and we'll offer that in different countries. We've got one in Switzerland, one in Prague, one in Australia. So we've got people in different parts of the world too. And I think that from my experience and talking with people in various parts of the world, is that a lot of businesses, I mean, it may be a different country, but they all have the same kinds of core needs. Every business, whether it's in Europe, Africa, or North America, South America, it doesn't matter. They all have customers. They all have a need to communicate with those customers and understand how to market to them and get them to pay attention and want to engage with them. They all have salespeople that want to take money from those people, and they all have customer service. At some point, someone's going to buy something from them, and they want to make sure that they're well supported. And so those are universal constants. And I think as a result of that, these concepts that we're talking about today are not specific to any one culture. Every culture around the world faces these same issues. Humans have egos all over the world. And
really?
I would say that, I mean, they're probably a little bit different here in the United States.
Some are bigger than others,
yeah. But the idea really is that these concepts are common because so many of them are human concepts, things that we as people all face regardless of what culture we're in.
Let's get back a bit to simplicity. So how do we measure, or do you measure simplicity? So what I think of is, as a user of a system, number of clicks to achieve a mission, a job, to get a job done. Another one, which is more on organizational level, is the effort needed to set up the system, to get it up and running, and to maintain it, to improve it. So what are the main criteria that you are looking at?
I think in the concept of, from a management perspective, overhead is a good sort of a measuring tool for that, to ask people, how much of your day are you spending not doing what you really want to do as a job? If you're a salesperson, like how much of your day are you spending typing notes into a CRM or doing administrative management kind of tasks? If you're in marketing, how much of your day are you spending trying to figure out how to use or to build an automation or how to, or, design an email or, whatever, these kinds of automated overhead-ish kind of efforts. How much time do you spend your day doing that? And we want to minimize that. Obviously, we want to spend. There's always going to be some. It's just how do you minimize that with automation, with an easy to use user interface or user experience when using a CRM. All of these things factor into that, and part of that too factors into the concept of total cost of ownership, TCO, where you're talking about not just the cost of, say, a subscription to a CRM or to a platform, but also how much labor time does it take to learn and implement, and how much labor cost is there to use this. I've talked to people that use more, we'll call them traditional CRMs, the big ones like Salesforce, Microsoft, Oracle, these big ones, where the idea of them being able to access information was sold to them very early on. But when it actually comes to how they're able to do that, they can't get the data in. And so I've talked to so many people that use like a Salesforce interface where they can't just click on a contact and see a history of what web pages they visited or what emails they've opened, which is technology that's been around for 20 years. And yet here we are with this multi-billion-dollar and probably very expensive implementation where these very simple integrations still don't work very well. And I think and that's why the requirements are so important, because you don't want to tell a salesperson, here's your contact record, but for you to be able to figure out what they did with your email, you're going to have to log into a different system and look at it. Salespeople will.
Voila.
Yeah. And
there
they
you
won't
have the beef. Yeah. 55% of sellers rely on a combination of applications and manual tools. 72% of the sellers need 3 or more screens open. And now it's coming to the real hit. In the average, they need 8 different systems. So you are enabling them to really have a better life.
To remove those, the fewer systems someone has to log into to do their job, the less overhead, the less complexity, their lives are becoming much more simple. And that's what we want to do, because then if you're a good salesperson, you want to be on the phone, you want to be or meeting with people and talking to them, being at a trade show. You don't want to be in front of your computer trying to figure out where you can pick up where do I find out the last time I talked to this person?
Yeah.
How do I get a transcript of my last phone conversation with this person?
Bingo.
That should be click on the record and there it is. And if it's not, it's overhead. It's making complexity in a life that people just don't want. Nobody wants that.
And if I'm a road warrior, I would like to have this on my mobile phone and ask my mobile phone, please get me the last contacts out and give me a talkative summary where while I'm sitting or while I'm driving in the car and I'm going to the parking lot and will see my customer in 5 minutes, give me a wrap up. And give me some numbers such as what are the pain points we have discussed and what is the turnover and what is my ROI on that customer, so that I have a fair starting point for the negotiation I'm going to start.
Yep. And that is an important part of creating efficiency. That's something that we recently actually built in with our integration with OpenAI and ChatGPT, where it'll do that. It'll do that very thing. So you can click on a contact and there's a little icon. You just click on it and it will summarize your relationship with that person or the client or whatever. And it uses ChatGPT to generate the script. And then OpenAI has a really cool text to speech. So you just click it, it generates the script with AI, and then it plays it for you. It speaks it to you. And I mean, it's amazing to listen to. It's really cool. But that's exactly what we're talking about is how do you create that efficiency so that if I'm a salesperson, I don't have to go find the contact and then dig through all these different notes, all these different activities or whatever. How do we streamline that? So not just in one system, but then one click summarizing all that information.
That's
absolutely cool.
basically
I embrace
the
it.
key point. We are not talking about reducing the number of systems because, as you just admitted, by leveraging OpenAI, which is
Yeah.
a bunch of its own right now, you added another system. So the key is not keeping the number of systems low, but keeping the number of perceived systems low, isn't it?
Right. That's a very good, and I haven't ever thought about it that way. you're right. The number of perceived systems is the important part. In our system, you just put in the OpenAI API keys, and then a bunch of things will just show up in the screen. So those integration points are silent. There's one screen where you set up the integrations, and then everything else just kind of shows up automatically. And that's a key element to it, so that there may be all these things happening underneath the hood, but as a user, they're not having to go and look at OpenAI or do anything. And that's another reason why we use OpenAI to do content generation. So if you're building an email, there's a little button where you can click and you can do that. And theoretically, someone could have another tab open on their browser, and they could go and they could type in and say, write me 3 paragraphs about how to do blah, blah, blah. In our system, you click the button, and there's sliders for reading level, sliders for the number of words. And when you're asking it to write content, it automatically takes the contact information and feeds that in the prompt. So if I'm going to send a message to Ralph, I will already know I want to sell Ralph an electric bicycle, whatever. I'll already know that information in the CRM, and I don't have to put that into the prompt because GreenRope will do that for you. And so it's that level of simplicity. It's, yes, there's another system hiding behind there. It's OpenAI and ChatGPT, but as a user, I don't see that. All I want to do is click the AI button and say, write me 3 paragraphs on how to sell Ralph an electric bicycle.
That's absolutely cool. And Ralph just wants to raise the hand and be the typical German, as I am. Be careful and have that API be prepared to use something else if the door to ChatGPT is getting too costly or even would be closed. Elsewise, you will get into trouble, because if you focus on one system, you might get dependent. Yeah.
I think, and that's why one of the reasons you never want to blindly just rely on AI to do anything.
Marvelous.
And that's what we do when we do that. Actually, it creates 3 different versions of content, and then you can kind of mix and match and pick things, and then just it'll automatically, you can pick what you want and put it in. So the idea is that OpenAI should never be used blindly. No AI should. And I was actually just reading this morning an article that was talking about how someone had done a study where they did social media engagement with human writers and AI writers. And what they found was that the AI actually outperformed on one metric, and humans outperformed on the other metric. And one, I can't remember which one was which. One was engagement, and the other one was actual action, like click through. So one performed better than the other. And the moral of that story was that humans and AI need to work together, not one or the other. And so your point is spot on. You never want to just say, okay, AI, write that for me, and off it goes, because there's a good chance there'll be garbage in there.
I was honestly on the other track of the road from what we had in the pre-show discussion that we have in the moment around OpenAI, a little madness and disturbance. And it's very agile, very vividly, such as if I rely on these services, I would like to know where I place my eggs in which basket. So if I'm open, I'm a little more relaxed than if this fantastic Hollywood spectacular is running off and is disturbing me further on.
It's the Silicon Valley spectacular. Hollywood doesn't have anything to do with it.
For me, it's like they are describing the typical hero story from Hollywood. You have a bad guy, you have a good guy, you have a problem, all that stuff. That was why I was calling it a Hollywood spectacular.
Long story short, I think he wants to ask, what's your plan B if OpenAI turns to become a closed AI?
Yeah, I mean, and then you have to find another way to provide the technology that does that. I mean, and that's a matter of giving people choices. you sometimes as a small business, you have to, you don't have unlimited resources to integrate with just everybody. So in our case, we chose OpenAI, and if it turns out that OpenAI fails, then we will change to something different. It's just
sorted. Now, lighthouse projects. I'm always a big fan of lighthouse projects. Would you like to share some of those with us and the audience?
It's funny because a lot of them are centered on AI.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, no, it's the reality. I think that CRM is a tool that creates efficiency. It's a tool that puts information together. And AI is a great way to take a lot of different disparate data and distill it into something that's easy to digest. I think that is AI's primary function and greatest value is the ability to take a lot of information and make it short and simple and summarized. So we use it for phone calls. We use it in our support tickets. We use it we just launched this thing that's like a daily summary. So if you're logging into your account, you click a button and it looks at everything that's happening for you today and tomorrow. And it'll say you have these meetings coming up on these times. This is what you're going to talk about. These are other things that are happening. You've sent so many emails. Anyway, it's sort of a summary of the day. And if you do it in the middle of the day, it'll say a brief summary of what you've done and then what's coming up and then what's happening tomorrow. So
you have your personal assistant.
Yes, that's what we call it, actually, our dashboard personal assistant.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Copilot?
No, I didn't. I don't. Yeah, I thought about that, but I was like, I don't know.
Well, being a pilot and so.
Yeah, it's sort of an overused thing.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and like, because we have that for you as a user, and then we also have that when you look at a contact, where it'll, like we were talking about before, where it'll summarize all that information together. So, and we also built an AI chatbot that is smart enough to know who you are when you use the chatbot to personalize the conversation to you. So, which is something that we do where when you visit a website, of course, that's how we track people on a website. If I know that it's Thomas, if you're on our website and I know that you're interacting with our AI chatbot, I can personalize the responses to you. And that's an important part of the personalization experience.
Now we are getting into another exciting topic that's probably worthwhile another hour, but just in brief. So part of simplicity is correctness, reliability, trustworthiness, because the system services are not simple for me if I need to check it up all the time. And reliability and accuracy comes with not only using this external large language model that knows everything about the world up to 2021, or well, they did an update recently, but nothing about my company, nothing. So in how far do you combine that?
So there's three elements there. One is the large language model itself. The second one is fine-tuning that model. And so with fine-tuning, you create prompts and responses. And so we actually have a fine-tuning tool that will train your chatbot using AI. So it's using AI to train the AI. So you feed it content, whether it's a website or a document or whatever. And then it ingests that, creates the prompts and the responses, uses those to train the AI, the fine-tuned model. So you've got the LLM, and then you've got the fine-tuned model prompts on top of that. And then on top of that, then you have the personalization of the person visiting. So I know that if it's you that's on my website interacting with the chatbot, I know everything that's in the CRM about you. And that's an important way for driving. So if you have, say we know that you are a CRM consultant and you're on our website and interacting with our chatbot, we know now we've got the OpenAI large language model, we've got these fine-tuning prompts. And then if we know you're in the target market and we know that you're interacting with our chatbot, then we can say, if it's a consultant, a CRM consultant, then bring up these points. And so that's part of the fine-tuning model. So you're talking about combining a knowledge of the market and really customizing that chatbot with what we know about you, the user. And it's all those three pieces kind of playing together. And the last two are the ones that we can really control. So obviously the large language model is out of our control. But that's why we need to fine tune that model and train the AI so that it's able to best deal with questions coming from you. And that's why they say when you do fine tuning, you want to have at least 50 or 100 prompts that are pre-built, preferably much more than that. But and that's why you need AI to help you do that. You need to build those prompts.
So shortly before the end, we finally got a reaction that is worthwhile putting on the screen. So thanks, Tony. Still, in the course of time, we passed the top of the hour, so it's time for the final last words, which is, well, simplicity and CRM. What is the future of CRM in your eyes? What are the next steps?
I think it's going to be more leverage. And I mean, I hate to beat on the dead horse of AI, but I mean, it's like, or the live horse, whatever it is. but I really think that the role of CRM is to create efficiency. The role of CRM is to help people do their jobs better and make it easier for them, make it simpler. And the more we can leverage our tools to do that, I think that's going to create more efficiency, more time for people to do the things that they want to do. And so I think it's a refinement of user experience and integration of AI into every element of the CRM process so that we feel like we have the assistance of an AI tool everywhere we go as a way to help us do the things that we do day to day. And of course, that comes with risks. It doesn't mean that as humans, we let go and just say, well, we'll just let the AI do it. It's leveraging the tools and the technology to help us do our jobs better and be more aware and focus our energy on the things where we as humans can really apply our critical thinking skills and our creativity and our ability to manage human-to-human relationships.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for this. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot to everybody who is still there and who we did not scare away. Let's call it an end. Call it an hour for today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
So see you